Our guest today is Tarik Miranda, who's a candidate for school committee seat in the April 3rd Milford Town election. Welcome, Tarik.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
So basically, you're one of several candidates running for school committee this year. Why don't you tell us about yourself and why you're running?
I was born in Boston, raised in Milford my entire life, went through the school system. Right now I'm at my senior year at Wentworth Institute of Technology, studying computer information systems. I have a job lined up at Dell for when I graduate, and I want to run because I want to give back to the town that has taught me the foundations and set me on my way through life.
So basically, you're 4 years out of the local school system.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And why are you running?
I'm running because I'm recently just graduated and I know the problems that we face in the school system.
Such as?
One of them is the infrastructure physically, besides the new beautiful Woodland School, it's falling apart. An example is a leaking high school roof. Another reason why I'm running is because I want to bridge the gap between the underprivileged in town and put an emphasis and try to help them exceed in life and progress to the next stages.
Okay.
And I have many notes that I've taken and written down.
Go ahead. We don't expect you to be a professional politician, so feel free.
Thank you, thank you. We recently a few years ago, we were downgraded to a rank 3 high school in the state tier system, and that makes us in the lowest 20% of schools in the state of Massachusetts, which does not make us attractive for anyone at all.
Okay.
Why would you pick Milford over any town around us if every town around us is doing better than us?
Okay.
Another thing is we have recently I was going through the Milford Facebook pages, and a lot of parents are complaining about a growing bullying issue in the school system, and I would like to tackle that issue if voted in, because I find that's very bad. It's terrible. You shouldn't be getting bullied. You should feel safe in the public schools.
Okay. So what do you think you bring besides youth and a closeness to the school system, being only graduating 4 years ago? What talents or attributes are you offering to the public?
A different way of thinking, because I've just recently graduated, I can see, I lived it recently, and I know how things are changing. And
you have a brother or sister in the school system, don't you?
Yes, I have 2 who graduated already, and I have 2 currently in the school system.
Okay.
One's a freshman, his name's Tiago, he's a cheerleader, and the other one's in 7th grade, her name's Julia.
Okay.
Yeah. So we need to work on our test scores, right? Be subpar in some subjects. And I want to also help the special needs program. We have a great program, I'm told, by many, many people, and I see the results of it. But we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks, and we need to fix any holes and problems that might be hindering any of the students in the school system. I believe we need to teach them basic life skills, such as taking out a loan, what an APR is, all of that. So you truly can, when you go to college, understand how much you're actually going to pay back. Once you're signing those papers, you understand what that actually is and how long it's going to take for you to be done with it. And I believe civics is very important, and maybe we should have a stronger push towards teaching that, because not many young voters are registered. Most seniors turn 18. Not many of them register to vote right away. I know if you have Mr. Bontempo, he has forms in his room, and the day it's your birthday, he's handing it to you and making you mail it in to the town clerk. And I think that's very important, get everyone actively involved from when you can.
Okay. Milford is, compared to the surrounding towns, I find Milford has more of a diverse population, which is, I think, the polite way of saying you have an immigrant community that, constantly refreshes the town, but on the other hand, there might be a language problem in the school system. Is that a concern of yours, the English language learners?
Absolutely it is. I've grown up with a lot of them, and unless you came here at a very young age, the English is subpar, and it restricts them from, I'd say, excelling in life, living in the United States. And I believe it's 27% of the school system, the entire school system, speak English as a second language. So that's over 1,000 kids in our school system learned some other language, Portuguese, Spanish, Arabic, French, before they learned English, which I'd say can hinder their growth here.
Yeah, you yourself have a multicultural background, correct? If I'm not mistaken, you are Italian, Portuguese, Brazilian descent?
Technically, yes.
Technically.
Technically, oh yeah.
But we all are. I'm Irish German descent, so.
Exactly, and so you have to embrace that, but you also have to learn about the country you're living in to make yourself valuable to the community and a better person.
Well, I know the town's invested quite a bit of money in the English language learner program over the last couple of years. Do you think it needs more improvement? Have you looked into how it's going? Do you think it's going okay?
Well, I went to a school committee meeting a few months back, and they were making a presentation about that, and there was no clear goal. There was no statistics. It was just saying things were getting higher and higher, but there was no statistics saying that, are we getting better at this? Are they learning English? We're not. It doesn't seem like we're tracking that. So we could be putting money into it, but we might not be seeing the results we want.
Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to think of, what you'd like to focus on if you got elected.
Right.
Those particular issues?
Absolutely.
Okay. You're decidedly younger than the other candidates running. And you mentioned that people more your age group aren't registering to vote. Are you going to try to attract the quote-unquote millennial generation to register and vote for you?
Of course, because without them, I don't think I can do this alone. I need everyone's vote and everyone's help to get to what I want to do.
I'm not making fun of it, by the way. Two of my three kids are millennials, so.
No, it's a fact.
Yeah. Most
kids in my generation either aren't registered to vote or just are but don't vote because they're not interested in that now. But in the future they will be, but they don't understand that they need to vote now so that in the future they would have already voted for what they want.
Right. We have lengthy dinner time conversations in my house about what generation screwed up the world. And
who was it?
I think every generation sets out with great intent and succeeds in some things and fails in others.
Well,
and you don't find out till 2 or 3 generations later if they were successful. I mean, in my own life, I've seen, for instance, in the area of civil rights and race relations, I've seen landmark changes.
Right.
In things like gay rights, I've seen landmark changes. Yeah. In other things, it's just the same.
Right.
If not worse.
Well, we don't want to make things worse. I want to make things better for all the students here.
Right. What do you hear from your family members that are in the school system? Do they sit around and say, when you get in, you got to do this?
Absolutely.
What are some of the things they bring up?
Less homework, less tests, but I can't do the less tests. It's state mandated.
Okay.
Less homework. I believe that you need a good balance. I believe I had that balance, and I think everyone should.
I'm the wrong person to ask about homework. I had a ton of homework every night, and I actually thought it helped teach me things. I have a very good memory of the things I learned in high school. And for me, that was over 40 years ago, and I'm very glad of the foundation I had.
Well, in school, you learn the basic concept.
Right.
And then you're supposed to master it by just practicing, and that's why we're given homework, so we can master that concept that we're being taught in the classroom. Because you're not going to learn it and master it in 10 minutes.
Right.
Everything takes time and effort, and then you'll see the results over one day, 1 week, 2 years. You'll get there.
Right. Now, I was going to point out that if you're at a top engineering school in the area, and you already have a job lined up, obviously you did well through the school system.
I'd say so. I had a good time, great teachers, great friendships, did my work, and I'm being rewarded for continuing that right now in college.
Okay.
It's just hard. I really believe that if you work hard, it'll pay off.
Okay, then why isn't it paying off for everybody? If you say some of the results aren't good or where they should be, what's happening?
Well, just for starters, our college readiness index is 32.2 out of 100.
Okay.
So that means only 32% of our high school graduates are proficient in college. So that means.
And that's some standardized
that is from the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Okay, that's pretty authoritative.
and the U.S. News gives the same number.
Okay. Well, what do you think is causing this? I mean, the schools have the lion's share of the town budget.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm not a big believer personally that just throwing money at something solves it.
I agree. You need a plan for everything.
You know, in my neighboring town of Mendon, a couple of years ago, the schools did a long-range plan. They said we need this much more money to achieve it. They measured against it, and then went back and asked for more to achieve the second half of the plan.
And have they achieved it?
They did achieve the first part. The second part is still in process, but they're working on it.
Well, so according to U.S. News, Niche, and the Mass Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Mendon-Upton School District ranks 40th, while Milford ranks in the 97th. So
Okay,
you
but
can see that they're
aren't they
paying
vastly
off.
different types of communities?
I'd say the community is different.
Doesn't that account for, though, the way a town operates?
Yes. So that means we need to account for that, and I think I can bring that accountability into it because I know who the students are who are struggling, and I know why they're struggling.
Okay, why are they?
Because unless, as I mentioned earlier, unless you come here at a younger age, you're set in the culture from back home, and assimilation and learning English just becomes harder for that individual. So you really have to try and push harder for it.
Okay.
But that's on a personal level. There's only so much the teachers can do for you.
That I agree with.
Like they do a great job, but then it's up to you to just connect the missing pieces at the end.
But don't you think that there are always the high achievers, the middle of the road students, and the group that just struggles, no matter what town you're in?
Yeah, you have that everywhere in the world for everything, jobs, schools.
Okay. Then how do you push that higher achiever part of the spectrum higher? Because it seems that what you're talking about is to get those scores up you mentioned.
So are you talking about just the highest achievers? How do we make them higher, or how do we make the lowest?
Well, the whole district higher.
How do you make it higher? That's when I believe we need to implement a long-term, let's say a 5 and a 10-year plan.
With specific goals?
With specific goals and repercussions if they're not met. Or not repercussions, but more of a line of just
Holding people accountable.
holding people, yeah, they need to be, not just the teachers, but the students as well. The students also have, the teachers can teach, but the students need to.
Well, how about the school committee? Should they be held accountable?
Absolutely.
I mean, if I can't remember in the high school if 1 is the highest level or 5, but I know we went from the highest level to a 3 at the high school.
1 is the highest level in the
Okay.
tier rankings, 5 is the lowest.
So the high school is now down to a 3.
Yes.
Okay. Who do you hold accountable for the fact that it's dropped from a 1 to, I'm sorry, you said 1 is the highest.
Yes.
From a 1 down to a 2, down to a 3. And in your plan, would you say by, X number of years, we want to be a 2, and then X more years, we want to be back to number 1?
Right, that'd be the simple way of saying it, but should the school committee be held accountable? Absolutely, because they're the ones that implement the policies and the curriculums in the school system.
Well, they don't implement them, they set them.
They set them.
Right, the administration implements them. The teachers carry it out day to day.
Exactly. The teachers do the best with what they're given.
Correct.
So I believe it has been poor leadership at the top that has caused us to worsen as a school system.
Okay, and by leadership, do you mean the administration or the school committee or both?
Both.
Okay, so how would you hold the administration? If you get elected, how would you hold the administration up to task for that?
It depends on the goals being set.
Okay.
So if it's a 5-year plan, 5-year to get to 2 again. If we're not there, before we held someone accountable, we have to assess the entire situation and say, why aren't we there?
Correct.
And then we have to, from there, see if it's actually the administration at that point who's still hindering us.
Okay.
But right now we have different administration at the high school level, new principal, assistant.
Right.
And the school committee is going to be basically brand new this year.
Well, at least 3 out of the 7
3 out of the
members.
7, almost brand new. And so they have to do things in the best interests of all the students. That's why the school committee's there. And if they have to pass policy that can help those students excel, not just one certain section of them,
Okay.
but all 4,100 students that they serve. And yeah.
Okay. Now, you've obviously already begun talking to people and are out campaigning.
Mm-hmm.
What's the reaction people have to when you talk to them about your aims and goals?
Well, I get the same snicker at first because I'm so young, but when I tell them what I want to do, and their replies are very well received, I'd say. They think I'm a joke at first when I first mention it, but then when I start speaking and explaining what I want to do, they believe me, they can get behind it, because who doesn't want a better school system? I don't know one person who says they want the schools to get worse.
That's certainly true. Now, the jobs that are out there now and in the future are vastly different than the jobs that were available 10 years ago, 20 years ago, back in the last century when I graduated high school. Well, it was the last century, so. But how do you best prepare students for jobs when it seems the majority of them are technologically oriented? I mean, we keep hearing a big emphasis on STEM, science,
Right.
technology, engineering, math, that that's where the jobs are going to be.
Correct.
And I certainly know from my children and their friends, the more liberal arts jobs, if they are there, don't pay very well.
No.
So how do you educate today's students for tomorrow's jobs?
Well, we have to push STEM on. I'd say we have to push STEM onto the students. And you also have to explain to them that if you want to go into the liberal arts, unless you're a high level at a publishing firm, or unless you want to be a college professor, something around those lines, you most likely won't get paid as much as the STEM majors, because they're just falling behind, and because they don't make money. Not that the businesses themselves don't make money off of liberal arts majors unless they're published, unless they're book unless they're authors.
And you did talk about teaching practical life skills. Did anybody ever teach you what it's like to try to live on minimum wage?
Yes. Yeah. My parents taught me.
Your parents taught you
My
that?
parents taught me a lot of, almost all the finances I know, or they taught me, and I researched myself. And I do it for fun. I know.
No, you know, I think what happens is you get people, they get to a certain age in life, and they realize all of a sudden the career path they've chosen or didn't choose and it just happened
Right.
is limiting where they thought they wanted to go, whether it's job-wise, dollar-wise, whatever. But a lot of them don't connect back to, well, I didn't really do well in high school,
Right.
or I didn't apply myself in college. How do you get that across to people at the high school level, or say from the middle school level up, that, you know, it's a real world out there?
You have to tell them. You can't tell them everything's going to be okay all the time. You have to tell them that it can get rough. You might not make $1 million right out of school. You might graduate college and you could be stuck working at Dairy Queen or McDonald's, or you make your own business, a completely different career path. You have to be open to them, with them. So I think that's the only way they'll understand it, is if the school and the parents work together in letting the kids know that sometimes you can work hard and you are more likely to excel, and if you don't push yourself through college and high school, you might come full circle and just stay where you are, and then from there, that's when you realize that you had messed up.
Now, you just put a thought in my head. You know, as somebody who also had 3 kids go through a public school system, you kind of depend on the schools to do it all as a parent. You send your child off to school and you try to teach them some life lessons, but have you ever thought of maybe there should be a curriculum for parents on what the school system isn't teaching the children? So things parents should teach them along with what they're teaching them in the school system.
Well, I think the parents should teach them respect and how to behave, and I don't think that the schools should not teach respect. No, not that they shouldn't teach it. They should emphasize it, but they're not the ones that are held accountable, I should say.
Correct.
The parents are held accountable for bad behavior,
you know,
and not being respectful.
But I still go back to the time where if the schools called your parents, man, you were in trouble.
Well,
where today, most parents are, not my kid.
Well, that's a problem. Like I said, you can't just say it's going to be okay. If they ever called the schools, if they ever called my parents, I'd lose, I don't know, soccer or my phone or my video games or my TV for a month at least. It didn't happen, but if it did, I knew the consequences, so I never treaded on thin ice.
In my family growing up there, the consequence, and I was the youngest, so by the time it got to me, I had seen the consequences in action of bad behavior with my older sisters.
Oh.
And, you know, I knew what buttons not to push, shall we say.
Exactly. My parents always emphasized, do well in school, go to college, you're going to live a better life.
But do all parents do that today?
I don't think some parents are as involved in their kids' lives as they would like to be. Some live paycheck to paycheck, and it's hard. Some are working 2 jobs just to make a living and send their kids to school and feed them.
Right, but the school bears the brunt of that when the child comes to school, whether they're fed well, raised well. Do you think that has anything to do with some of the scores not being comparable to other towns that are more well off?
Yes. Statistically proven, a poor, diverse population will have lower test scores. And that's what we're seeing in Milford, I'd say.
So then, how do you plan on getting those raised? Is it getting in and examining what's going on? You don't have a specific plan going in the door.
Well, my plan is to find out exactly where they're not connecting, you know? That, like, find out exactly.
What grades, what groups?
Exactly. That's what I want. That's where, and then from there, we can come up with multiple ways, because there's many ways to do the same thing, and we could see what works best in fixing that gap, because it's not one solution for everything. And what works in the 2nd grade isn't going to work in the 7th grade, and it's not going to work when they're a junior in high school.
Okay. Are there programs that aren't in the school system today, or were there before, you'd like to see there?
Well, I'd like a foreign language to be implemented at the K through 6 level. There was Spanish from K through 6. There isn't today. And the reasoning I'd like to see a foreign language implemented is because it teaches you better cognitive skills and reasoning skills. And in today's world, a foreign language makes you marketable once you graduate.
It is a multicultural world out there.
I'm trilingual. I can speak Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And that on my resume, that's the first thing on there. That's the first thing on my resume, because it's my most valuable skills. It's what sets me apart from who I'm applying against. And it's very, very important to know it. And I'm not saying it has to be Spanish or Portuguese or French. There just needs to be.
No, my oldest son works for a company that does quite a bit of business in Japan, and on his own he started taking Japanese lessons.
Exactly, and that makes him more valuable to the company.
That's why he took them.
And he has a less chance of being let go if anything were to happen, because that sets him apart from somebody else.
Right, that's why he did it. Basically, he's on the phone and email a great deal with his Japanese counterparts, and he thought it would go much, much better if he learned their language.
Exactly, and it makes you understand others around you better who speak that language. You just understand why they're speaking it, or you can hear some words. It's just a better understanding of the cultures and what makes America great, really. It's a melting pot of everything.
Okay. So another question is, you'll be graduating college, starting a new job, setting out your career. Do you have the time to be a school committee member?
Absolutely.
How do you know that?
Because up until now, I've had a lot of spare time in my life.
Okay.
And I've always been thinking, what can I do with my time to give back? I've always wanted to, because I look at what's wrong and not what's wrong.
Well, where does that idea come from of giving back? You're fairly young. What have you think you've gotten that you want to help give back?
Well, my parents came to Milford.
Right.
And I'm Brazilian Portuguese, I was never discriminated against in the entire 13 years of the school system.
Okay.
I was never discriminated against. And and that's a blessing. That is a blessing, I would say, because there are some places you can go to and they will look down on you for being different. Okay. And it's just a wonderful place for everyone in Milford. You're accepted for who you are. It doesn't matter what the background is.
Okay. And you feel like you got a good education?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So is your goal to give people the same level you got or a higher level of education?
I want them to be better educated than I am. So then when I mess up, they can tell me I messed up. And when I do something right, I want them to tell me I did it right.